If you're tired of these promos, supporters get the podcast early and ad-free. Just go to donate.bogosity.tv for the links to sign up. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the week of July 4, 2021, the podcast that invented the slotted fork. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's ostensitize the news of the bogus. You've probably heard from 5 million different directions that Bill Cosby's assault convictions have been vacated and he's been released from prison. You've probably heard all sorts of reasons why, none of which are the actual reason. No, it wasn't the patriarchy or anything. The first major conviction of the Me Too movement was tossed because of, what else? Dirty play by prosecutors. In 2018, Cosby was sentenced to 3 to 10 years after being convicted of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault. Now, Cosby is a free man after the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania threw out the conviction. Without spending too much time on the backstory, Andrea Constant says that in 2004, Bill Cosby invited her to his home where he gave her pills which he later claimed were Benadryl and sexually abused her while she was under the influence of those pills. The problem is, she didn't file a complaint until 2005, long after any physical or forensic evidence was gone, and Montgomery County DA Bruce Castor found too many problems and inconsistencies with her story. The state Supreme Court ruled, in evaluating the likelihood of a successful prosecution of Cosby, the district attorney foresaw difficulties with Constant's credibility as a witness. These considerations led DA Castor to conclude that, unless Cosby confessed, there was insufficient credible and admissible evidence upon which any charge against Mr. Cosby related to the Constant incident could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Later on, the judgment gives more details, quote, "The fact that Constant had failed to promptly file a complaint against Cosby troubled the district attorney. In D.A. Castor's view, such a delay diminished the reliability of any recollections and undermined the investigators' efforts to collect forensic evidence. Moreover, D.A. Castor identified a number of inconsistencies in Constant's various statements to investigators. After Cosby provided his written answers, police officers searched his Cheltenham residence and found no evidence that, in their view, could be used to confirm or corroborate Constant's allegations. Following the search of Cosby's home, Constant was interviewed by police again. D.A. Castor noted that there were inconsistencies in that interview which further impaired Constant's credibility in his eyes. He learned that, before she contacted the police in Canada, Constant had contacted civil attorneys in Philadelphia, likely for the purpose of pursuing financial compensation in a lawsuit against Cosby. So the DA wanted to get the criminal case out of the way so that Constant could sue Cosby civilly, where she could get direct compensation and where the burden of proof isn't as great. Quote, "Seeking some measure of justice for Constant, D.A. Castor decided that the Commonwealth would decline to prosecute Cosby, thereby allowing Cosby to be forced to testify in the subsequent civil action, under penalty of perjury, without the benefit of his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination." And so Cosby, facing no prosecution, could no longer assert his Fifth Amendment rights. Quote, "Cosby was forced to sit for 4 depositions. That he did not and could not choose to remain silent is apparent from the record. When Cosby attempted to decline to answer certain questions about Constant's attorneys obtained a ruling from the civil trial judge forcing Cosby to answer. Most significantly, Cosby, having maintained his innocence in all manners and having been advised by a number of attorneys, provided critical evidence of his recurring history of supplying women with central nervous system depressants before engaging in allegedly unwanted sexual activity with them, the very assertion that undergirded Constant's criminal complaint. Cosby and Constant settled for $3.38 million, but then the DA's successors reneged on the deal and prosecuted him anyway, using his statements in the deposition, such as his admission that in the past he had given Quaaludes to women, although he maintained it was Benadryl he had given Constant. The trial consisted of no evidence but Cosby's civil trial statements and a parade of women they found to come through and say Cosby did the same thing to them, and why they weren't deemed inadmissible I'll never understand, since their statements were never proven in court and had a prejudicial effect that way overshadowed any probative value. The Fifth Amendment says you can't be forced to testify against yourself criminally, but civil courts are another matter. since they couldn't get a confession from him, they set it up where Constant could get those statements in civil court. Here's what happened next. Quote, DA Castor's successors did not feel bound by his decision and decided to prosecute Cosby notwithstanding that prior undertaking. The fruits of Cosby's reliance upon DA Castor's decision, Cosby's sworn inculpatory testimony, were then used by DA Castor's successors against Cosby at Cosby's criminal trial. So, basically, the DA can't make you testify. The DA says they're not going to prosecute you, and so the alleged victim sues you in civil court, where you can be made to testify. Afterwards, the DA reneges on the deal and takes those statements and uses them against you in criminal court, doing a complete end run around the Fifth Amendment, which the court called, quote, an unconstitutional coercive bait and switch. And that was exactly DA Castor's concern. Quote, the former district attorney further emphasized that it was absolutely his intent to remove for all time the possibility of prosecution, because the ability to take the Fifth Amendment is also for all time removed. The court ruled, we hold that, when a prosecutor makes an unconditional promise of non-prosecution, and when the defendant relies upon that guarantee to the detriment of his constitutional right not to testify, the principle of fundamental fairness that undergirds due process of law in our criminal justice system demands that the promise be enforced. I'm not going to take a stance on whether or not I think Cosby is innocent. I'm just going to say, if you believe Cosby is innocent, you believe that justice has been done, but it was an injustice keeping him in jail for 2 years, and so we need to rein in corrupt prosecutors. If you think Cosby is guilty, you believe it's an injustice that he was released, which means you should still think we need to rein in corrupt prosecutors to stop these releases from happening. And if he really is guilty, the prosecution shouldn't be cheating to begin with. As the court said, quote, as the Commonwealth's representatives, prosecutors are duty-bound to pursue equal and impartial justice and to serve the public interest. Their obligation is not merely to convict, but rather to seek justice within the bounds of the law. The fact is, without corroborating evidence, Constant's testimony just isn't reliable, and since there is no corroborating evidence, you don't have guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Quote, there is only one remedy that can completely restore Cosby to the status quo ante. He must be discharged, and any future prosecution on these particular charges must be barred. It cannot be gainsaid that society holds a strong interest in the prosecution of crimes. It is also true that no such interest, however important, can ever eclipse society's interest in ensuring that the constitutional rights of the people are vindicated. Society's interest in prosecution does not displace the remedy due to constitutionally aggrieved persons. When an unconditional charging decision is made publicly and with the intent to induce action and reliance by the defendant, and when the defendant does so to his detriment, and in some instances on the advice of counsel, denying the defendant the benefit of that decision is an affront to fundamental fairness, particularly when it results in a criminal prosecution that was foregone for more than a decade. No mere changing of the guard strips that circumstance of its inequity. A contrary result would be patently untenable. It would violate long-cherished principles of fundamental fairness. It would be antithetical to and corrosive of the integrity and functionality of the criminal justice system that we strive to maintain. Don't blame sexism. Don't blame the patriarchy. Don't blame anything systemic except the fact that prosecutors feel that they can get away with cheating because they usually can. If you're looking for ways to support this channel, but you don't have any spare cash and you can't stand advertisements, you can do so by generating your own cryptocurrency. Use the links at the bottom of the description to listen to the podcast and all of my videos on bittube.tv or lbry.tv to get cryptocurrency for the creator and yourself. Or if you listen to the podcast at the podcast page, you'll also generate crypto. You can also go to airtime.bogosity.tv to get the airtime extension and generate crypto for yourself and the creators on the web anywhere you go, including my YouTube channel. Get 5 tubes free just for installing the extension and signing up, and then simply browse the web as normal. Easily monetize your favorite creators and yourself with cryptocurrency without advertising on BitTube.tv or LBRY.tv or with the airtime extension at airtime.bogosity.tv. With all the misreporting and misinformation going on, it's a good thing that fewer and fewer people trust the news. In fact, just 29% of Americans trust the news compared to 45% in Canada and 54% in Brazil. In fact, the U.S. ranks last in media trust among 46 countries, according to a report from the Reuters Institute. It even ranks below Poland, the Philippines, and Peru. The Institute found that there was actually improvement in media trust among all the countries surveyed, likely due to COVID-19 coverage, except the U.S. Local news fared better than national, but local print media is threatened by a reduced willingness to pay for it. Only 21% said they pay for news online, and of those who do, 31% pay for the New York Times, 24% for the Washington Post, and only 23% for a local news site or regional newspaper. According to Rasmus Kleis-Nielsen, director of the Institute and one of the report's authors, quote, "Many Americans do not feel that news organizations are covering people like them fairly, and those who say the news media are treating them less fairly are less likely to trust the news. This includes, for example, younger people, young women in particular, Black Americans, and Hispanic Americans." He also mentioned a political divide, with 75% of people on the right distrusting the media. Quote, "Political partisans, especially on the right, trust the news media much less and also do not feel news organizations cover their views fairly. How would any attempts to appeal more to those on the political right, often older white Americans, combined with attempts to appeal to younger and more diverse audiences who are often more liberal? How about just reporting the truth and let the chips fall where they may? Who knows? It just might work. It certainly hasn't been tried." Besides, 74% of conservatives said they prefer a range of views, and 66% preferred neutral treatment of issues, as opposed to media that just reinforces their views. On the other hand, partisans in favor of social justice believe impartiality may not be appropriate. The report said, quote, "For younger people, it may be that, while they want facts, they are idealistic and see impartial news as less engaging, lacking authenticity, and failing to further social justice causes instead of perpetuating the status quo. For those on the political left, the danger of the radical right-wing views and the scourge of racism emerge as reasons for not remaining neutral. Indeed, issues of social justice inform people's opinions on neutrality, with some, especially younger and left-leaning people, saying there can be an ethical justification for being non-neutral. Make of that what you will. At any rate, it's good to see that the silent majority isn't taken in by the media's crap any more than we are. Hopefully, it'll soon be sink or swim time for news outlets who either need to change to be more impartial and accurate, or die the death. If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. And this is kind of a weird one. San Jose just made it a crime to encourage sideshows on social media. Because First Amendment? What's that? Never heard of it. When the COVID lockdowns left streets and parking lots empty, people started using them to engage in various activities, some of which, like street racing, are downright illegal. But other activities were just various performances that drew a crowd in contravention of the stay-at-home orders. Various places in the country, such as Oakland and Alameda in California, have set up special teams to deal with sideshows, dangerous driving, and various other activities. In San Jose, at least 8 people have been killed in suspected street racing events. But most of that was before the pandemic, with an ordinance adopted in 2019 that allows police to charge spectators to these activities with a misdemeanor. But while other cities have adopted similar legislation, San Jose has gone one step further and made it a crime to talk about them on social media. Penalties are up to $1,000 in fines and/or up to 6 months in jail. Police Chief Anthony Mata said in a memo to the City Council, quote, "Other agencies are looking for our leadership to both enforce the spectator law as well as enact this law sanctioning the facilitation of spectators. Given the important role facilitators play in encouraging and popularizing these events, discouraging their participation is an important step in combating the problem." Police Captain Todd Trayer told the council, quote, "If you don't invite people to the party, then there's no guest list and there will be no sideshow." Yeah, because no one ever did anything like that before social media and there's no other way to spread the word. But former county prosecutor Stephen Clark pointed out the obvious, quote, "Your First Amendment rights would override any local ordinance. People have the right to assemble and the right to communicate under the First Amendment. I think what's going to be the problem here is how this is going to be enforced and what specificity is going to be required in these posts to get a conviction. If someone is making a very specific request that people get together to participate in a sideshow, that could be construed as aiding and abetting a crime. If you want to just generally say there's going to be a get-together, you cannot be held responsible if people decide to act illegally during that get-together." You'd think that'd be obvious, but apparently the city council doesn't even care. That's not even the worst that San Jose has done. For that, just wait for the next segment. Do you have children, or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling, or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to Bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins, and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-aged children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at Bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins. And now it's time to inculcate this week's biggest Bogon emitter. So yeah, it's San Jose, who wants to make all gun owners pay for the violence committed by a few. If the new ordinance is approved in September, then gun owners would need to pay an annual fee as well as carry insurance. Mayor Sam Liccardo said at a city council meeting, quote, "While the Second Amendment certainly protects the right to own a gun, it does not mandate that taxpayers subsidize the possession of those guns. And we need a mechanism that will both compensate injured victims and take some of the burden off of taxpayers. Because it's wrong to make taxpayers who had nothing to do with it pay for it, so let's make legal gun owners who also had nothing to do with it pay for it. Makes perfect sense. Isn't this like forcing a tax on all drivers to pay for the harm caused by drunk drivers? Or taxing condoms to pay for the harm caused by rapists? Or making Linux developers pay to fix bugs in Windows? In addition to the insurance and annual fee, any resident will be required to hand over any firearms to police on request. Wait, I thought lefties said they don't want gun confiscation. The council unanimously voted to support the plan, so it looks like it's a shoo-in, but a lot of details need to be worked out, including how much gun owners are to be charged for existing. They haven't even said whether this is technically guilt by association or pre-crime, although it has to be one of those. Of course, no one seems to ask why these mass shootings keep taking place in the state with the highest gun control score from the Brady campaign. Liccardo even acknowledged that the ordinance wasn't going to stop mass shootings, so guess what'll happen after the next one? Something even more onerous will have to be passed. And as usual, they already have the exceptions put in place for active and retired police officers. So all of that makes the city of San Jose this week's biggest Bogon emitter. I want to tell you about the eyeglasses I've been wearing for years. As people can see on my videos, I have a very strong prescription, which makes glasses more expensive, especially when I need computer glasses, reading glasses, prescription sunglasses, and most expensively, progressive lenses for general everyday wear. To save money while still getting quality glasses, I get them from Firmoo. In fact, I just got a pair of progressives with high-index aspherical lenses and a nice pair of frames my wife loves for just over $100. It would have been $500 to get them through my eye doctor. Not only do they look good, the glasses are durable. I've worn many pairs for several years without problems. All orders come with a 30-day return policy, a 3-month warranty, and one-on-one customer service. Go to Firmoo, that's FIRMOO.Bogosity.tv anytime you need quality glasses at a low price. Once again, that's Firmoo.Bogosity.tv. And now it's time to fructify this week's Idiot Extraordinaire! And this week it goes to the UK High Court, where even non-existent trademarks will be enforced. We've covered at length the idiot Craig Wright and how there's no way he could possibly be Satoshi Nakamoto, creator of Bitcoin. But despite the fact that he's completely unable to prove he's the author of the 2009 Bitcoin white paper, and couldn't even spell Bitcoin properly for several years, and to this day doesn't even seem to understand the technology, he's managed to convince the UK court that the white paper is all his. He's even managed to convince them that the paper, released as an open document under the MIT license, is copyrighted by him and he can take it down whenever he wants. In January, the operator of Bitcoin.org, who goes by the pseudonym Cobra, the O has a slash through it, said that rights lawyers have threatened Bitcoin.org and BitcoinCore.org with a copyright infringement lawsuit if they don't remove the white paper from their domains. According to Cobra, quote, "The Bitcoin white paper was included in the original Bitcoin project files with the project clearly published under the MIT license by Satoshi Nakamoto. We believe there is no doubt we have the legal right to host the Bitcoin white paper. Furthermore, Satoshi Nakamoto has a known PGP public key, therefore it is cryptographically possible for someone to verify themselves to be Satoshi Nakamoto. Unfortunately, Craig has been unable to do this." There are so many ways he could prove he's Satoshi, in fact. As we've covered, if he really were Satoshi, he could prove it in seconds in a way that could be easily verified by anyone in the world. He hasn't. Wright's lawyers filed proceedings on February 24. Cobra was served on April 26 and given until May 18 to file a defense. They didn't, so Wright went to the court for a default judgment, which he received. Cobra was not present at the proceedings, so the court ruled entirely in Wright's favor, because apparently they don't have to give the law or reality any consideration whatsoever. They ordered Cobra to take down the white paper and to publish a copy of the High Court's order. They also ordered him to pay Wright's costs and ordered an inquiry to determine the level of damages. Ambulance chaser Simon Cohen said, quote, "This is an important development in Dr. Wright's quest to obtain judicial vindication of his copyright in his white paper. Why doesn't he start by proving he's the one who wrote it?" Quote, "It is notable that the English court has nevertheless injuncted Cobra from making the white paper accessible in the UK. Yeah, notable is one word for it." Quote, "Dr. Wright does not wish to restrict access to his white paper. No, he's just doing this for the lulz." Quote, "However, he does not agree that it should be used by supporters and developers of alternative assets, such as Bitcoin Core, to promote or otherwise misrepresent those assets as being Bitcoin, given that they do not support or align with the vision for Bitcoin as he set out in his white paper." Because they aren't the real Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin isn't even a protected trademark. As of this podcast prep, there's no indication the order has been put up anywhere, but although the white paper is still up on the site, when browsing to the link from a UK origin, instead of getting the white paper, it's been replaced by a quote from Satoshi himself saying, "It takes advantage of the nature of information being easy to spread, but hard to stifle." Something that Wright doesn't seem to get. Cobra wasn't staying silent. He tweeted, "All your fiat-based assets are ultimately secured by the same legal system that today made it illegal for me to host the Bitcoin white paper because a notorious liar swore before a judge that he's Satoshi. A system where justice depends on who's got the bigger wallet." And in a move that almost got Cobra the silver clue on, he did offer to pay the costs in a completely awesome way. Quote, "Happy to pay Craig his costs for the Bitcoin white paper case. How does a BTC payment to the address associated with block number 9 sound?" Block number 9 is one of the blocks known to have been solved by the real Satoshi. If Wright is Satoshi, then he would have access to this, and so there shouldn't be any problem with payment being remitted there, right? Cobra suspects that the next step for the court will be to require ISPs to block part or all of Bitcoin.org. It'll be interesting to see how successful they are, given that nothing on the website actually infringes on anything. But I guess with the High Court, if you have enough money for lawyers, you can claim to own the moon and get a default judgment when it fails to appear. So all of that makes the UK High Court this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this "You're the Classic Example of an Only Child" edition of the Bogosity podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go to donate.bogosity.tv for several ways to support, and discord.bogosity.tv to join the discussion. Subscribe at Patreon or Subscribestar, and you can listen early and ad-free. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from L. Neil Smith. "If the Fourth and Fifth Amendments were enforced, every last judge and prosecutor in America would be in jail, and America would be a cleaner, healthier place for it." The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Bogosity. We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now.